In Memphis, Tennessee, a man tried to sell the house that he was renting. And in Boulder, Colorado, two people are charged with trying to forge title documents to a house. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Alright, so I have two interesting articles for you today, and they're going over the topic of, once again, someone is trying to steal houses from their rightful owners. And in one of the cases, it's actually the tenant who's trying to sell a house that he doesn't own to someone else, okay? And it all has to do with home title theft. And I've covered this topic before in other videos. It's really an interesting problem. I didn't know it was such a big issue, but apparently it's happening all over the country. And fortunately, in these cases, they were able to catch the perpetrators of the crime. But man, I can't even imagine the mess that the landlords and that the property owners are going through when all this is happening. But before I get into the articles, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down below and let me know, have you ever experienced or know anyone who's experienced this kind of issue before? I mean, like I said, I had no clue that this kind of thing was going on. I'd seen the commercials about, home title theft and all that, but I just thought it wasn't that big of a deal because, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, you'd have to have a notary, you'd have to have all these documents, and there's all these different checks and balances in place, and it just doesn't seem like something very easy to do, but maybe people are getting away with this kind of thing. Anyway, the first article, it's coming from 9news.com, and it says, husband and wife arrested for forging home's deeds, police say. And let's see what this story is, okay? A 26-year-old man and his 24-year-old wife were arrested for allegedly forging quitclaim deeds to take possession of a man's home. Longmont police arrested Savuth and Yelissa Yin Wednesday afternoon after a 2-month investigation. According to arrest records, the case began on September 14th when the Carol Llewellyn Funeral Home in Longmont began getting several emails and calls from someone claiming to be related to a 77-year-old man who had been found dead in his home. The caller asked the funeral home to take the man and cremate him immediately, the arrest affidavit says. He lived alone, the affidavit says, and it is unknown who would have known he was dead, and why that person did not call police directly, the affidavit says. So it sounds like these people, they knew the person who had passed away. And so basically this person passed away and they immediately were probably trying to get a death certificate or some sort of proof of death so that they could say that, hey, we're the heirs or whatever. And then they could forge the document and, take possession of this property. Now, this is a pretty sophisticated scam because you have to know that somebody has passed away. And if you're not related to that person, I mean, maybe you're checking the obituaries in the newspaper or something, but man, it's hard to believe that people are going through this much effort. But let's continue. The funeral home became concerned about the calls and contacted the police, the affidavit says. The redacted arrest affidavit said the unnamed dead man was a well-known real estate broker who owned 7 properties, renting 6 out at the time of his death. On October 29th, one of the renters contacted LPD stating she had gotten phone calls from someone named Frederick Hampton, the affidavit says. Hampton told her he was now representing her dead landlord and says she needed to move out, the affidavit says. So looks like scammers trying to get these properties away from this landlord, knowing that he had died. So I mean, this is crazy. Just imagine, after you pass away, your family not being able to get your properties. Like they inherit your properties, and instead you got these scammers who are trying to take them from you. So yeah, this is a crazy situation. The renter called the Boulder County Recorder's Office to figure out who now owned the home she was renting, the affidavit says. She learned there were a number of quitclaim deeds filed for her dead landlord's properties by a Nathaniel Turner, the affidavit says. The LPD officer who talked with the renter contacted several other renters of the deceased man's properties. They reported similar calls about being asked to move, the affidavit says. The renter told police Her landlord's actual representative had stopped by her home and told her he believed someone broke into the dead man's home because he was not able to find any of the leases or keys to the rental properties, and 2 vehicle titles were missing, the affidavit says. Wow. Yeah, this is pretty sophisticated. So, one thing I will say is that, this case is a perfect example of just how far people are willing to go to try to steal, from people they know who have more than them. And man, I mean, I know I own a lot of property, so I would hate to see, if I was to pass away, that my wife would have to go through this sort of mess just trying to work out my estate when you have people who could just easily scam and file quit claim deeds and try to take possession of something they don't own. But man, that's a bad situation. But this next story, now this one takes the cake because this is absolutely insane. So the second story I have for you today, and it's coming out of Memphis, Tennessee, from Fox13Memphis.com, and it says, "Man tries to sell home he's renting, charged with felony, police say." Yeah, and this is nightmare tenant. Okay, this is the true definition of a nightmare tenant here. So let's get into it. A Memphis man faces multiple charges after trying to sell the house he was renting and had no right to sell, according to the Memphis Police Department. MPD said that 37-year-old Frederick Hill tried to make nearly $60,000 off of his landlord's property. Wow. So he was trying to sell this place for $60,000 that he didn't own. I mean, that's crazy right there. And they got a picture of this dude here, and I'm going to throw it up on the screen because I want everyone to see this scumbag's face, okay? This is a complete ridiculous situation here, and this guy, I'm glad he didn't get away with it, but, I'm going to show you what he looks like. The scheme was found out when a man who was in the process of buying the property contacted the actual landlord, police said. The confused landlord told the potential buyer that she had no desire to sell the property on South Willett Street, but the buyer said he was already in negotiations with somebody using her name. So yeah, sounds like at least the buyer was doing a little bit of due diligence, reached out to the actual owner of the property, and the owner of the property was able to jump on it and just to say, hey, I'm not selling the property, someone's scamming you right now. So hopefully this person didn't end up losing all their money, but they were able to get the tenant who was trying to sell it and get them arrested, get them charged with this crime, because this person needs to go to jail. Okay. Police said that Hill, using his landlord's name, even went as far as to hire a real estate attorney to draft a purchase agreement. But when Hill showed up to sign the document with the attorney, he couldn't provide any proof that he was who he was pretending to be. When police met with the attorney, he gave a statement and identified Hill as the imposter. Wow, what did he think? Did he think he was going to be able to go down to the attorney's office and the attorney was just going to sign off and be like, oh yeah, you own the... No, it doesn't work that way, okay? This attorney could get disbarred, lose their license to practice law. I mean, come on, This was a pretty interesting scam, but fortunately, the checks and balances that were in place were able to keep the landlord from losing their property and able to keep the buyer from losing that huge sum of cash, okay? If the scheme would have been pulled off, Hill stood to gain $58,000 by selling his landlord's property, which police said he had no legal standing to sell. Hill has been charged with criminal impersonation and attempted theft of property between $10,000 and $60,000. Yeah, a couple of crazy stories right there. This just goes to tell you that, hey, maybe that stuff about protecting your home's title, maybe that stuff is a good deal after all. I mean, I wouldn't have thought that these sort of issues even existed because I just hadn't really heard of it. So, just consider me naive. I mean, I'm never going to say that I know everything. So, watch your backs out there. My suggestion is if you don't have home title protection, go go in every once in a while to your local assessor's website at least once a month and check and make sure that everything still has the correct information on it, just to cover your own butts, because the last thing I want is for you or for me to risk losing our property to these sort of scammers.